My boyfriend tried to hide his real job from me. I never thought I'd be one of those people who overshares their dating life on Reddit, but here I am typing this out at 2 a.m., coffee long gone cold because I can't sleep. Honestly, part of me wants someone to tell me I'm overreacting, and part of me wants someone to say, girl, that's a huge red flag. And maybe, just maybe, I need a little narrative therapy before things get messier. So here's the thing. I met Logan Bennett through a friend. Well, technically through Maya, my best friend since college, who has this infuriating sixth sense about people. I mean, she's that friend who will tell you, mid-sip of your overpriced latte, don't even bother with him, he's bad news. And somehow, she's always right. Except that time, she didn't see Logan coming. Not even close. It started on a Thursday evening, one of those chill nights where you've just survived a brutal week at work and you're more than willing to ignore your responsibilities for a little distraction. Maya had invited me to a small get-together at Sophie Grant's apartment. Just a few friends from our city's creative startup scene. The kind of party where the music is low, the wine is cheap, but surprisingly good. And people talk about their side hustles like they're inventing the next Apple. That's where I first saw him. Logan was leaning against the kitchen counter, laughing at something Derek Wallace had said. He had this calm confidence, the kind that doesn't scream, look at me, but somehow demands attention anyway. Dark hair, sharp jawline, kind of eyes. Not the kind of eyes that like make you think he's trying too hard, but eyes that'll make you feel like he's actually paying attention when he looks at you. And when he looked my way, I don't know, it was one of those cinematic moments you roll your eyes at when you see it in rom-coms, but somehow it happened to me in real life. Olivia, this is Logan, Maya said, practically shoving me forward with a grin. He's new in town. Logan, this is my friend Olivia. She's brilliant and sarcastic. Basically a package deal. Logan smiled. One of those slow, genuine smiles that makes your chest do that weird fluttery thing. Nice to meet you, Olivia, he said. And he said it like he actually meant it. Like he wasn't just making small talk. We talked a lot about nothing and everything. Movies, music, work. He was annoyingly vague about that part, but I didn't care yet. Favorite childhood memories, terrible coffee habits. He had this way of asking questions that made me feel like I was the only person in the room, even though the party was still humming behind us. And when he laughed at something I said, not just a polite chuckle, but really laughed, it hit me that maybe I hadn't realized how starved I'd been for someone who just got me. Fast forward a week. We went out for coffee again, then dinner, then a late night walk in the city that ended with us sitting on a random park bench, eating overpriced gelato from a nearby cart and talking until our tongues went numb from cold and sugar. By the second month, I felt like I'd known him forever. He remembered the stupid little things I said, my coffee order, my favorite childhood cartoon, that ridiculous nickname my brother had given me. I'll admit, I fell fast, but honestly, how could I not? Logan was perfect, or at least perfect in the way that made you want to ignore the tiny warning bells in the back of your mind. He was attentive, but not clingy. Charming, but not cocky. He was successful, or at least he made it sound like he had his life together. But he was modest about it, never bragging or name dropping, and he made me laugh, really laugh, which had been a rare thing for me lately. I liked him. I trusted him, and I wanted to. But of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. That would have been too easy. The first little inconsistency came when he canceled a dinner date last minute. Work, he said vaguely. Long day, something urgent came up. I didn't think much of it. He'd mentioned having a demanding job, and I didn't pry. But then it happened again, and again. And the weird thing was, it wasn't just that he was busy. It was how he described it. Work, it was always some vague, nebulous thing he had to deal with. No specifics, no company name, no coworkers I could meet. Just work. At first, I ignored it. I rationalized it. Maybe he's just private. Maybe he doesn't want to mix work with his personal life. Maybe he's cautious because he's had bad experiences in the past, and besides, when we were together, he was present, he was there, and in a relationship where I'd been burned before, that mattered more than a few mysteries. Then came the weird hours. I started noticing texts at odd times, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., sometimes even earlier. Sometimes he'd respond immediately. Other times he'd vanish for hours. When I asked him about it, he'd say, just some late night stuff at work. Nothing to worry about. And I believed him. Mostly. It wasn't until the third month that Maya nudged me a little. We were sitting at our favorite coffee spot, and I was whining about Logan canceling yet another brunch date. Liv, are you sure he's being honest about his job? Maya asked casually, stirring her chai latte like it was nothing. I laughed. He's busy, Maya. You know work is hectic. No, I mean, really honest. You've never met his coworkers. He's never shown you where he works. It's weird. Even for a busy guy. I felt a flicker of guilt. Maybe she was right. But then, I thought about how he remembered my favorite flowers. How he randomly brought me lunch when he knew I was having a rough day. How he stayed with me until I fell asleep after a panic attack. Could someone that thoughtful really be hiding something sinister? I decided to brush it off. He was Logan Bennett. He had this aura about him, like he was trustworthy, like he was real. And if I started overanalyzing every little thing, I'd drive myself crazy. But the inconsistencies didn't stop. There were moments that made me pause, like the time I noticed a receipt in his coat pocket from a hotel downtown. Nothing scandalous, just a name and address I didn't recognize. I asked him about it casually. "Oh, just a meeting," he said, smiling like he always did. "Some client stuff." And that was it. No explanation, nothing to verify it, just trust me. And somehow, I did. I started piecing together a mental list of oddities: vague work explanations, secretive late night schedules, a phone he never let me touch, which he justified by saying it's private, and the occasional weirdly evasive answers to normal questions. The thing is, I didn't confront him. Not really. I couldn't. Every time I considered it, he'd smile at me or make some small gesture that reminded me why I liked him in the first place. Like the time he showed up at my work with a ridiculous bouquet of sunflowers because I joked about how much I hated Monday mornings. Or when he remembered that I always drank my coffee with an extra shot of vanilla syrup, no matter what. I started thinking maybe this was just who he was. Private. Mysterious, but harmless. By month 4, we were practically inseparable. Friends joked that we were attached at the hip. Logan had this way of knowing when I needed space versus when I needed company. He was considerate, thoughtful, and charming in a way that made me feel like maybe I didn't need to worry so much. The inconsistencies felt less like red flags and more like quirks. And for a while, I was content. Then there were the small weird coincidences I couldn't quite ignore. The time he had to rush off to a meeting, but got home 3 hours later without any explanation. Or the time he was unusually tense on the phone, but claimed it was stress at work. And I started noticing subtle habits. He never talked about colleagues, never shared details about his projects, and sometimes even seemed evasive when I brought up mundane work topics. I'll admit it, part of me wanted to ignore it. I wanted to believe in the perfect boyfriend, the charming, sweet, attentive man who made me feel safe and cared for. And for the most part, that's what Logan was. I wanted him to be perfect, maybe a little too much. But here's the thing about perfection, it's never perfect. One night, around 6 months in, I was at his apartment. We were cooking dinner together, an otherwise normal, cozy night. I was chopping vegetables when I noticed a file folder sticking out from under a pile of papers on his kitchen counter. I picked it up casually and my stomach sank a little when I saw the label. It wasn't a typical work folder. There were codes, names, addresses, stuff I didn't recognize. I felt that flicker again, that little nagging suspicion I'd been ignoring. What's this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Logan glanced over, paused, and then smiled. "Oh, just some work stuff, not for you to worry about." "Right," I said, trying not to let my unease show. I set it back down, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, going over everything I knew or thought I knew about Logan Bennett, and I realized slowly that maybe I didn't really know him at all. But here's the thing, I liked him, a lot, and that's the problem. Because when you like someone this much, when they make you feel things you haven't felt in years, when they make you laugh until your cheeks hurt, when they care about you in all the tiny, meaningful ways, you want to believe in them, even when the little red flags start piling up, even when your gut tells you something isn't right. And that's how I ended up here, 6 months into a relationship with a man I adored, a man who might not be who he said he was, and me, blissfully or foolishly, ignoring the warning signs. I didn't know it yet, but the inconsistencies, the evasive texts, the mysterious work stuff, they were only the beginning. So after that initial spark with Logan Bennett, everything started to feel slightly off. I didn't notice it right away because when someone makes you feel as good as Logan did, it's easy to rationalize things. But as the months went on, little patterns started surfacing. Things that didn't add up, things I couldn't quite ignore. At first it was subtle. He'd get phone calls at odd hours and either walk away or answer quietly in another room. He'd sometimes vanish for a few hours with vague excuses about work emergencies or last-minute meetings. Normally I would have shrugged it off. After all, who am I to question someone's work life? But then I realized something. He never actually talked about his job beyond vague references. No coworkers, no clients, no office anecdotes. Nothing. It was like his work existed in some parallel universe that only he knew about. I started paying attention. I don't even know why. Curiosity, suspicion, some annoying combination of both. But I did. One Tuesday night, we were watching a movie at his apartment when he got a text. He excused himself, disappearing into the bedroom. I caught a glimpse of his phone screen as he left. The text was from someone named RL, asking about some kind of meeting. That wasn't unusual, except the language was weird, extremely formal, almost coded. I blinked and looked away, telling myself I was imagining things. But then came Thursday. Logan had promised to meet me for lunch downtown, and I showed up at the cafe early, which is unusual for me. I hate waiting, but something told me to get there before him. I sat with my coffee, scrolling aimlessly on my phone, and waited. And waited. 30 minutes passed, then 40. Finally, I texted him. "Where are you?" No response. I called, straight to voicemail. By the time an hour had passed, I was irritated and anxious. I texted Maya, who immediately started grilling me with questions over text. Did he say he had a meeting? Did he mention traffic? Is he acting shady? I tried to reassure her, but deep down, I knew she was right to worry. Logan was acting shady, but I didn't want to admit it. When he finally arrived, all charm and apologetic smiles, I asked him about the delay. "Oh, crazy day at work," he said, shrugging like it was nothing. "Had to handle an emergency client thing?" I nodded, but a small part of me tightened. I didn't know what kind of emergency client thing required. Vanishing for over an hour in a city full of short meetings and quick appointments. That night, lying in bed, I started doing the thing I promised myself I wouldn't. I googled the company he claimed to work for. Nothing. Not a website, not a LinkedIn page, not even a casual mention in the news. Just silence. That made my stomach churn. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe it was a small private firm. Maybe he worked remotely. But the nagging feeling refused to leave. Over the next week, patterns became impossible to ignore. Logan would leave his phone on the counter when he went to the bathroom or got something to drink, but whenever I tried to casually glance at notifications, he'd return suspiciously fast, saying, "Everything okay?" with that smile that made it impossible to sound accusatory. I felt like a teenager caught sneaking into the kitchen past curfew, not a grown adult in a seemingly adult relationship. It didn't stop there. Receipts started popping up. A coffee shop downtown at 3 a.m. that he swore he just passed by, but I knew wasn't on his usual route. A parking garage ticket from the other side of the city he must have misremembered. Every small inconsistency made me raise an eyebrow. And then there was the thing with his coworkers. I had met maybe one person in 6 months, a guy named Derek, who Logan claimed was a coworker from a different office. Derek was nice enough, but the only time we hung out together, I noticed something strange. Logan seemed cautious. Derek didn't act suspicious, but Logan's body language around him was odd, defensive almost, like he was guarding something. I wanted to confront him, but every time I considered it, the thought of losing what we had, or worse, discovering a truth I wasn't ready to face, made me hesitate. Love is weird that way. It makes you ignore red flags. It makes you rationalize inconsistencies. And God, did I love him. One night, after another late work emergency, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started piecing things together quietly. Google searches, subtle questions to Derek and other mutual friends, scanning text messages and receipts when Logan wasn't around. I wasn't snooping like a stalker. I kept telling myself I was just being cautious. But every little thing I uncovered made the suspense unbearable. I remember one particular evening when Logan left for a business dinner downtown. I was supposed to meet him afterward at his apartment, but something felt off. He was unusually tense when leaving, checking his phone repeatedly, muttering about traffic and meetings. I waited 10 minutes, then decided to go online and see if I could find any info on this supposed dinner. Nothing. Not a single trace. No reservation at a restaurant he mentioned, no mention of his client. I stared at my laptop screen, feeling both alarmed and stupid. Was I overreacting? Was I letting paranoia get the best of me? But deep down, a knot twisted tighter in my stomach. Then came the almost caught moment. There was a time I tried to peek at a text when he left his phone on the counter. He returned seconds later before I could even look properly. His expression was calm, but I could feel the tension radiating off him. "Everything okay?" he asked, casually leaning on the counter. I froze. "Yeah, just checking the time," I mumbled, trying not to look guilty. He smiled, nodded, and walked away, but my heart was pounding. It was like walking a tightrope over a pit I couldn't see the bottom of, every step bringing the possibility of falling. Subtle hints started showing up too. Things like random codes scribbled on a napkin, names in his calendar that didn't match anyone I knew, unusual emails from addresses that didn't make sense. He'd leave for work at odd hours, sometimes early morning, sometimes late night, and return without explanation. Every time I tried to ask about it, he'd give a vague answer or a charming smile, and I'd feel that familiar flutter in my chest that told me maybe, just maybe, I was being ridiculous. But then, there was a time I accidentally saw a message from someone named RL again. The tone of the text was professional, urgent, and cryptic. It mentioned a drop, a check-in, and timing. I blinked, stared at the screen, then looked around to make sure Logan wasn't watching. My pulse quickened. I had no idea what it meant, but my gut screamed that it wasn't just a normal corporate conversation. I started keeping a small mental diary of patterns, late-night messages, vague meetings, evasive answers, mysterious receipts, odd behavior around supposed colleagues. It was growing into a full-fledged puzzle, and as much as I loved him, as much as I wanted to trust him, I couldn't ignore the fact that the pieces weren't fitting together. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was in some confidential industry. Maybe he was protecting me by not telling too much. But then the secrecy started feeling oppressive, like there was a wall between us that he refused to let me climb. Maya noticed too. One Friday night, she came over for wine and to watch a movie. By the second glass, she was giving me the "you're ignoring the obvious" stare. "Liv," she said, sipping her wine. "He's hiding something. I don't know what, but it's not normal. You can't just brush this off because he's charming." I laughed nervously. "Maybe he's just private? I mean, not everyone likes sharing every little detail about their work." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Private is one thing. Vanishing for hours, weird texts, secret codes, no coworkers, another. Come on, you know he's shady." And she wasn't wrong. But the thing about love, especially the kind I felt for Logan, is that it blinds you. I wanted to see him as perfect, to trust him completely, to believe that he was just mysterious and not deceptive. By the end of that month, my curiosity had morphed into an obsession. I found myself checking the clock when he left, scanning receipts, making mental notes of text patterns, Googling everything from his supposed company to the addresses he mentioned. And yet, whenever he returned, whenever he smiled at me with that calm, effortless charm, I wanted to forgive everything I suspected. I kept telling myself if he loved me, he'd explain. If he trusted me, he'd share. But the silence, the evasiveness, the strange patterns, they were all screaming that something wasn't right. I just didn't know what. And that's how my life became a constant balancing act between love and suspicion, trust and paranoia. I loved Logan Bennett with every fiber of my being, but every day brought a new puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. A code that didn't make sense. A receipt that didn't match any explanation. A meeting that didn't exist. I didn't know it yet, but I was slowly walking into a world Logan had been keeping hidden. A world that, if revealed, could either shatter everything or change the way I saw him forever. And the strangest part, I wasn't ready to let go. Because despite all the inconsistencies, the weird hours, the strange codes and messages, there was something about Logan that made my heart refuse to listen to logic. Something that made me believe, against reason, that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't hiding from me. He was protecting me. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. But deep down, I knew better. I wish I could say I saw it coming. I wish I could say there was a single moment where the pieces clicked, where a flashing neon sign appeared above Logan Bennett's head that screamed, "You don't know this man at all." But the truth is, it wasn't one big moment. It was a series of tiny, almost imperceptible clues that built into a mountain I couldn't ignore anymore. It started with a routine Thursday evening. Logan had told me he'd be late. Again, because of some work thing. I had learned by now to not ask too many questions. Most of the time, his explanations were sufficient, charming, evasive, but sufficient. But that night, something felt different. There was tension in his voice, a slight tremor when he said, "Just trust me, Olivia, I've got this covered." "Logan, what exactly is going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. I was tired of the mysteries, tired of piecing together his life like a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve. He shrugged, flashing that infuriating smile that made it impossible to sound accusatory. "It's complicated, really. I can't explain it yet. But it's safe. I promise." Safe. That word should have set off alarms, but instead it made my chest tighten in that familiar, stupid way it always did around him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him. But after months of inconsistencies, evasive texts, late night work emergencies, and weird receipts, something in me had finally snapped. I decided then and there I needed to know. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Logan left his apartment briefly to grab something from the store, leaving his laptop on the counter. I froze, staring at it like it was a live grenade. Could I really do it? Could I look? I rationalized it with every excuse I could think of. It's just to verify what he's hiding. It's not snooping. It's protecting myself. If he loves me, he won't get mad. And then I opened it. The moment I typed in his password, something ridiculously easy like Logan 123. Seriously, the man had no clue about password security. I was hit with a slew of folders, encrypted emails, and files that made no sense to me. There were client names, addresses, cryptic codes, financial transactions. At first, I thought it was some kind of consulting job, maybe corporate espionage or something. But then I clicked on a file labeled Operation Mercury, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't marketing. It wasn't even remotely legal. I froze, staring at documents that detailed what looked like covert operations, surveillance, movements of people I didn't recognize, logistics that implied dangerous, morally ambiguous work. I couldn't breathe. My mind was spinning. I tried to make sense of it, tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was private security. Maybe he was in some shady but legal intelligence work. Maybe. No. The more I looked, the more the truth became impossible to deny. Logan Bennett's job was something else entirely. Something dark. Something that could ruin everything. Not just for him, but for anyone involved, including me. My hands were shaking when I heard the door click. I spun around. Logan was standing there, calm, almost too calm, his eyes catching mine with that infuriating charm that made me simultaneously angry and weak at the knees. "You looked," he said, not accusatory, just stating it as fact. I had to," I stammered. "I needed to know. I couldn't ignore it anymore." Logan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Olivia, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this." "Hope it wouldn't come to what? Hiding your life from me? Leaving me in the dark while you, what? Spy on people? Do things that could get us both in trouble?" My voice shook, part rage, part fear. "I trusted you." He took a cautious step closer, but I backed up instinctively. "Please, let me explain," he said. And somehow, despite everything, I let him. Because that's what love does. It makes you want to hear the explanation before you judge. Logan told me, slowly, carefully, a version of the truth that was both terrifying and compelling. He wasn't a spy in the James Bond sense, but he worked in a covert private intelligence agency. Not exactly legal, not exactly morally clean, but necessary, he argued. He explained that secrecy wasn't about hiding from me because he didn't love me. It was about protecting me, protecting us. The details were murky, complicated, and I couldn't process all of it at once. "Do you have any idea what happens if I told people? If anyone knew?" he asked, his voice almost pleading. It's not just me, Olivia. There are rules, protocols, lives could be at risk, including yours. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the betrayal cut too deep. 6 months of vague excuses, secret meetings, disappearing acts, and coded messages. None of it had prepared me for this. I felt like the floor had dropped from under me. I don't know what to say, I whispered, sinking into the couch, wrapping my arms around myself like it would shield me from the truth. I feel like I've known you my whole life, and now I don't even know who you are. Logan knelt beside me, reaching out, but I flinched. I'm still me, he said softly. I'm still the guy who laughs at your dumb jokes, who stays with you when you can't sleep, who loves you. Nothing about that changes, but it did. Everything about him had changed in my mind. The foundation of trust I built, brick by brick, felt like it was crumbling. We argued, not in a screaming, chaotic way, but in a quiet, suffocating way that hurt more than any shouting match could. I demanded answers about his assignments, about the people I saw in the files, about the things he couldn't tell me. He answered as best as he could without revealing operational secrets. The whole night felt like a battlefield. My heart caught between love and self-preservation, between curiosity and fear. At one point, I stood and paced, fists clenched. Do you even realize what you've done? All these months lying to me? What if something happened? What if I got caught in the crossfire of your... whatever this is? Logan's eyes softened. I know. I failed you, but I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to protect you. I kept you in the dark because the moment you knew, you'd be in danger too. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Protect me? By lying? By treating me like I'm too fragile to handle the truth? Yes, he admitted, almost whispering. Yes, because I love you. I couldn't risk losing you or anyone else to, well, to the world I live in. And just like that, I felt both rage and guilt. Rage at the lies, at the secrecy, at the broken trust. And guilt because deep down, part of me still wanted to believe him, wanted to reach out, hold him, tell him it's okay. But another part of me screamed to run. We sat there in silence for what felt like hours, the weight of the revelation pressing down on us. I thought about the past 6 months, the dates, the late night talks, the little gestures that had made me fall for him, and wondered how much of it had been real, and how much had been shaped by the secrecy, the half-truths. By the time dawn crept through the blinds, I realized something important. This wasn't about some moral judgment on his profession. It was about trust. It was about honesty. It was about whether I could forgive the months of half-truths and secretive behavior. And more importantly, it was about whether I could continue the relationship knowing that the man I loved lived a life so far removed from mine that danger and deception were a constant part of it. I didn't have an answer yet, and neither did Logan. The revelation had shattered the illusion of perfection. It had forced me to confront the reality that love isn't always simple. And sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the deepest, intentionally or not. That night, as Logan finally fell asleep on the couch beside me, I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the stakes, about the risk, the danger, the lies, and the love that still refused to let go. My heart was torn in ways I didn't think possible, and I knew that whatever choice I made, our relationship would never be the same. I was caught between forgiveness and self-preservation, between fear and desire, between the man I thought I knew and the man I had just discovered. And for the first time, I truly understood what it meant to fall in love with someone who wasn't just imperfect, but dangerously, thrillingly complicated. I spent that entire weekend in a haze. Logan's revelation was still fresh in my mind, the weight of it pressing down on me from every angle. I didn't know what to feel first: fear, anger, betrayal, or the ridiculous, stubborn pull of love that refused to let me walk away. My friends tried to call me, check in, but I wasn't ready to talk. Not yet. I needed space, clarity, and above all, I needed to figure out what I could and couldn't accept. Maya was relentless, of course. She stopped by Saturday morning, claiming she was just bringing coffee, but really, it was a reconnaissance mission. Liv, you need to decide, she said, handing me a steaming cup of overpriced latte. Her eyes were sharp, scanning me like she could see the chaos swirling inside my head. You can't just sit here and stew. You either accept him fully with all this dangerous stuff, or you walk away. You know that, right? I wanted to argue, to tell her that love isn't that simple, but deep down, I knew she was right. Every day I spent with Logan, I'd have to reconcile the man I loved with the world he lived in, a world I didn't fully understand, didn't fully trust, and the thought of it made my chest tighten. I made a decision, not a full, final decision, but a step toward it. I was going to confront him, not with accusations, not with threats, but with honesty. I needed to hear everything from him. The full picture, no more mysteries, no more half-truths. If he refused, then maybe my decision would become easier. If he opened up, well, that was a different story. I found him at his apartment later that evening. He was sitting at the counter looking nervous, a rare crack in his calm, composed exterior. He looked up when I entered, offering that smile that used to melt my heart in seconds. Hey, he said softly, how are you holding up? I sat down across from him, taking a deep breath. Logan, I need the full story. No vague work emergencies. No cryptic codes, no disappearing acts, everything. Now, he swallowed, leaning back in his chair. I was hoping you'd say that. And then he told me everything he could tell me without compromising safety or protocol about his work with the covert agency, the types of operations he was involved in, the risks, the moral gray areas, the lives that depended on secrecy. I listened, heart hammering, mind reeling. Every word made me more aware of the danger surrounding him, yet somehow also more aware of who he was. Not just a charming boyfriend, but a man burdened with responsibility, conscience, and loyalty in ways I hadn't imagined. I didn't tell you because I wanted to protect you, he said, eyes locked on mine. I couldn't risk your safety, your life by dragging you into this world. I wanted to scream at him, to yell about trust and lies and how unfair it all was. But when I looked at him, I saw the weight he carried. The sleepless nights, the decisions that could haunt him forever, the burden of keeping everyone safe while keeping us safe from the truth. And somewhere in the chaos of anger and fear, I saw him, the man I fell in love with, not a perfect hero, but a flawed, deeply human man trying to do right in a world that made no room for honesty. Logan, I whispered, I get that you wanted to protect me, but trust isn't just about keeping me safe. It's about honesty too. You put me in danger emotionally, mentally, and I almost don't know how to forgive that. He nodded, quiet, accepting. I know I can't change the past. I can only tell you the truth now and hope you'll understand enough to stay. I don't expect you to forgive me instantly. I swallowed hard. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to run, to walk away and protect myself from the chaos of his world. Another part of me wanted to stay, to hold him and somehow navigate this impossible landscape together. We sat in silence for a while, the air thick with tension and unspoken words. Then Logan reached out, taking my hand in his. His touch was warm, grounding. I'm not asking you to jump in blindly. I'm asking you to decide for yourself. Whatever you choose, I won't fight you. I love you, Olivia, but I can't have you here if you're not willing to see the full picture. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about him or his secrets. It was about me, my boundaries, my self-respect, my ability to love without losing myself in the process. I took a deep breath. I need time. I can't just flip a switch and pretend none of this happened, but I also can't ignore what I feel for you. I love you, Logan, and I want to try, carefully, cautiously, but honestly. No more lies, no more secrets I can't handle. He squeezed my hand, relief flooding his features. Thank you, he said quietly. I promise, no more secrets. I'll be completely open from now on. I want this to work, but only if it's real. Truly real. Over the next few weeks, we navigated this new territory. Logan introduced me to a few trusted colleagues I could meet safely, explained parts of his work in ways I could understand without endangering anyone, and kept no detail hidden that could be shared. It wasn't easy. There were late nights where I'd lie awake wondering if I'd made the right choice, and he'd sense it, holding me close and reassuring me in the only ways he could. We argued, of course, about boundaries, about trust, about the things he couldn't tell me. But we also laughed, we cooked together, we went on walks, and we rebuilt the small, intimate rituals that had first drawn me to him. Slowly, carefully, the tension started to ease, not vanish, because some truths can't be erased, but transform into understanding. One night, after a particularly long day where he had returned from a field operation, I asked him the question I'd been too scared to ask. Logan, why me? Why risk letting me in at all? If your world is this dangerous, he looked at me, eyes steady and sincere, because you're the one person I can't imagine my life without. I trusted you with my heart, even if I couldn't trust you with my world at first. You've proven that love isn't just blind, it's patient, it's brave, it's willing to see people as they truly are. And you've shown me that I don't have to hide anymore. I felt tears prick at my eyes. For the first time in months, I believed in us, not as perfect individuals, but as a couple, willing to navigate imperfections together. By the end of that month, we had established a fragile but honest rhythm. Logan's life remained complicated, morally gray and sometimes dangerous, but now I saw it fully. I understood the stakes, the risks, and the choices he made, and in understanding, I found a strange kind of peace. I also learned something important about myself, that love doesn't mean surrendering your boundaries, that trust isn't just about believing someone won't hurt you. It's about knowing the truth and choosing to stay anyway. And that honesty, even when it's hard, is the foundation for any real relationship. In the weeks that followed, we rebuilt our connection. We set rules for transparency, boundaries for our interactions with his work, and moments just for us. Ordinary, safe, human moments. The laughter returned, the late night walks, the silly arguments over takeout orders. Logan's charm remained, but now it was paired with a newfound openness that made it even more endearing. I'll admit, there were still moments of doubt. Moments when his phone buzzed with a notification or he left for an assignment, and my heart sank. But those moments were no longer filled with confusion or suspicion. They were filled with awareness, with understanding, and yes, a little fear. And that was okay. That was part of loving someone complicated. Part of loving someone who wasn't just perfect on the surface, but human underneath. Eventually, I realized that the story of Logan Bennett and me wasn't a tale of deception or betrayal. It was a story about boundaries, honesty, courage, and the messy, beautiful truth of loving someone entirely, even when their world is darker, stranger, and riskier than your own. And as I sit here now, writing this, I can finally say I made my choice. I chose love, but I also chose myself. I chose honesty, courage, and trust. And while our path is far from simple, far from easy, it is ours, complicated, imperfect, and real. I can't promise it will always be easy. I can't promise that the challenges of his world won't bleed into mine. But I can promise this. I will walk that path with my eyes wide open, with boundaries intact, and with the knowledge that love, real love, is worth the risk, even when it scares the hell out of you. Because in the end, Logan Bennett is not just the man I fell for 6 months ago. He's the man I see now. Flawed, secretive, morally complicated, yes, but also brave, loyal, and capable of love so deep it makes the fear worth it. And for me, that's enough. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.